Intro. Shh, down in front. Somebody find Saw playing. How about that, Wendell?
The only thing that would have been funnier would be Mitch McConnell playing the Saw.
Indeed. Everyone in the comments, let us know, is the audio level okay? Because we can't really correct this in post because this is post right now.
It's live. We're doing it Bill O'Reilly style, which is bad.
That's right, because you guys may notice a lot of the things in the background of the set are missing. We're out of here, like in a day. We are out of Seattle. See you later, Seattle. It's been nice. Your internet infrastructure was not good enough. I'm sorry, and that's pretty much it. Portland is pretty awesome, but we'll be back up here quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, we've got a LAN party to attend in April. So.
I'm still my second favorite city.
Behind,
behind a few others. Behind 7 others.
This place is nice. There's nothing really against this place. It's just it didn't have the infrastructure needs. It didn't match our infrastructure needs or our space requirements for
the money.
I mean, it's a lot of things went into this this calculation.
So it looks like we're getting an office down in Portland, which is going to be awesome, and a whole bunch of other things. Also, guys, listen, we're on Vessel. I said we would not do Vessel. And the reason I said that is, I'll let you go ahead.
I think we said that we would never do Vessel because we didn't like their we didn't like their business model, and we thought it was terrible, and it was basically just a big fu to the users, and it's all about us. And I think they listened to us when we got on that phone call, and they're like, "Hey, we'd really like you to be on Vessel," and we were like, "Hey, wait a minute, how does this benefit our audience?" And they're like, "Well, blah blah."
Well, you're
blah.
going to make a lot of money, and I was like, how does it benefit the audience?
And they were like, well, it doesn't really, I guess not. So we were just like, you know what, screw you guys. We don't like your business model. Come back to us if you come up with something a lot better than, what you have now. Bye. And
so they came back to us. They were like, listen, we have a new model where anyone can watch, not just people who are members of Vessel who are paying the monthly subscription fee. Anyone can watch this. And your content is no longer exclusive. So what this is now is it's an alternative platform. I think it's going to be a bit higher quality overall. The comments will be probably a little higher quality as well. But you guys can go watch it on Vessel. And the thing I like about Vessel is we can separate our different shows. As you can see here, like it's just easier than playlists. It's a much more elegant solution. We've got the tech here. It's prettier. It's got its little background there, all this stuff. Oh, recommending Linus videos. See, they knew this was going to happen. Anyway, we're going to embed this on the website, but we'll also, it'll help us a little bit because the ads there pay a little bit more, so it helps us. I think it's slightly better as far as the platform goes, but we're not going to force anybody to do anything. You can watch it on YouTube or you can watch it on Vessel on the same damn day.
That was the other caveat. Was like, wait a minute, you mean we got to put it on your platform and then wait a week to put it on YouTube? They're like, yeah, isn't that great? No. So they
make it stop.
Yeah, make it stop. What are you doing?
Anyway,
so we got to a point. Go ahead.
So what you're saying is this is an experiment. It's on Vessel to see if anybody actually wants to watch it on Vessel. And if not, Vessel will probably quietly die.
I think I may end up continuing to use Vessel regardless because Vessel allows you to create several different shows, and each show can automatically upload to a separate YouTube channel. So, for instance, we can have one Tech Syndicate brand, and then we can have a show that's called Hardware, and that will automatically upload to the Hardware channel. So for us, it's easier to upload, and it'll just spider to all of our different, YouTube channels. So It's a very easy platform for that. And then beyond that, I'll probably start using it to embed on the website. So, yeah.
So we may not push it or care. In all reality, I don't care what you watch it on because it will be on everything at the same time. Ultimately, the Vessel user interface for us was a lot smoother and a lot nicer. And I think it's because it's new. They've learned from the mistakes of their predecessors, so to speak, and made a platform that was kind of nice. It's not costing anybody anything. There is still options that we could be like, well, you know what, we want this to be pay only, but we're not going to do that. So the old Vessel way of life is not what we're adopting. It's this new we can upload to Vessel, and it'll upload to YouTube. It's gonna be fine.
Hey, and I'll still trash talk any of the other content creators out there who make their users go and pay for a service instead of giving it to them on multiple platforms at the same time. I'm gonna probably trash talk them a little bit. The only time we'll ever make you guys wait a couple of weeks for something exclusive is if we do like some sort of a documentary that costs us thousands of dollars and we need to make sure that we can recoup a little bit of that money. But I'll never do it for time-sensitive material. I'll never do it for the tech, and I'll never do it for any of our episodic content. It'll always be available at the same time. Only if I need to recoup from something that we have paid for out of pocket because we wanted to make it, and then it'll be a couple weeks there to recoup our investment, and then it'll come to YouTube. But that's the only case scenario I can foresee of us ever using.
No, we talked about this
model
before, and we even not on this, but we were talking about this the other day in reference to, we may just say screw the Vessel model for those cases. We may just put it as a full-length documentary on
Steam,
like
or GOG or
on GOG or one of those other platforms where you can actually release it. Or heck, maybe we even just call up Netflix and be like, hey, what would you guys say putting our show on your platform? I mean, the options are out there. So when it gets to that kind of content, that's what we're talking about. We're talking like a 90 to 100 and 120 minute full-on documentary where it's cost us a pretty penny to put it together and construct it and edit and all that kind of jazz. So
yeah. Anyway, are you guys ready to get down to the business with the topics?
yeah, let's start off with a really dark topic. Wendell, take it away. I want to hear your thoughts on
The
this.
taking selfies has killed more people than shark attacks in 2014, but it's also killed more people than a lot of different activities. So taking selfies, yeah, the new most dangerous thing ever.
The question that's first and foremost in my mind is this enough deaths to exert evolutionary pressure? If it is, it's probably a good thing.
I don't know. We're talking like a small handful of deaths. I mean, we all know that narcissism kills.
I mean, I think that the interesting part here is that the majority of people who have died while they say selfie-related death. So it's not like I took a picture of myself and it stole my soul and I just collapsed and died. It's more like I'm hanging off the side of a building and I'm like, I gotta get that right selfie. Give me the selfie stick. I'm way out here. A wind catches up. I lose my selfie stick and then I like let go and oh no, I'm falling to the ground. I wish I was still having the selfie stick and recording this on Periscope because it would be a really great snuff film and nobody would feel not traumatized after watching it. I mean, just that this is...
It's 36 males and only 13 females. That's just goes to show you that men are willing to do some really stupid things to create a spectacle just so they can get more likes, or possibly, I think men in general have this thing where, I mean,
they're immortal until they die.
Well, not that. I was going in a different direction. I'm going that I think that I'm not sure if it's maybe it's evolution, but I think men always are trying to attract attention, especially that of a female, because evolutionarily that's like their thing. That's why men yell and scream at women across the street. I'm not saying they should. They should use their intellect and say, I should stop acting like an animal.
Yeah, you think those people... I think it'd be nice if those people just kind of,
I'm not a scientist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know if this is part of the human psyche or not, but it seems that men do very stupid things to get attention at a higher frequency than women. At least women don't document it and die while doing it.
That's true. Well, not as
often.
Much. Yeah, but I think the 36 males that have died in this little study, what was it? That's 52? My math wrong? No, 49. It's not a whole lot. I mean, but it is. It's the predominantly males, and most of them are doing something stupid. I do think that it's interesting that more people have died from selfies than vending machines. I mean, I really thought those vending machines were getting smarter.
They used to be more dangerous than sharks, but I think sharks heard about that and they're like, come on, guys, are we really going to let vending machines tell us what to do? No, we're not. We're sharks. We don't even know what a vending machine is. Our brains are little. These dolphins, these Johnny Dolphin over here.
I think the one that really surprises me, though, is that more people die from selfie-related deaths than people climbing Mount Everest. And Mount Everest is a pretty deadly thing.
Yeah, but not anymore. These days, you just go, if you got enough money, and you pay a Sherpa to essentially carry you to the top of the damn mountain, and then you ruin the culture while you're there and piss and shit everywhere and throw your garbage on the... I'm sorry. What are we talking about again?
Mount Everest. Well, in all reality, though, more people are taking selfies than people who are climbing Mount Everest. But also the people who are doing these... people who are dying while taking a selfie, it's like, what exactly... How many people are doing the kind of crap that they're doing? while taking a selfie and survive versus not survive. I don't know. I just think the whole thing's kind of dumb.
Let's move on to something that matters.
Yeah.
Because Tesla's going to release their $35,000 Model 3. It's going to be on sale on March 31st, and it's not going to be available until 2017. Quick mention, if you guys are interested in a car, they said it's designed to compete with sort of the 3 Series model of BMW.
Oh no, it's going on sale in late 2017. They're announcing and releasing the specs and whatnot on the 31st of March.
So that's that. Moving right along. How about Woz creating a Comic-Con in Silicon Valley? Wendell, did you see this?
Yes, it's a Comic-Con with consumer electronics, which I've long felt that consumer electronics was dramatically underrepresented at things like Comic-Con and Dragon Con and that sort of thing, because hey, the DIY electronics crowd's right there. You could totally take advantage of that.
Well, yeah, you got that, and you've also got the biggest maker fair is right there in the Bay Area. But this is now the one I wanted to go to. One of the things that I just don't get into comics. It's like, yeah, sure, you can wear spandex and shoot lasers out of your penis, whatever. That's cool. You guys could make 50 movies out of it. I don't care. It's fantastic and fun and all that stuff. It's like it's our own mythology, I suppose, or a replacement for that. But I'm always more interested in science fiction because there's some plausibility in a lot of that, and they're throwing that in. So I'm really interested in that. Cosplay's listed as a thing on there. It's like that's a major thing, but I guess that's always a major thing at these events. Any excuse we can get to put on something ridiculous and parade around is fun.
Yeah.
And then consumer electronics. So why is it right when we're going to be so busy?
Yeah, it's like, why?
Really
it's only
go.
35 days away. It's like, couldn't they have told us about this, I don't know, 3 months ago? Did they just he's like, you know what, I'm going to do this. Bam, and said, hey, who wants to do this with me? And everybody just jumped on it and made it happen overnight. Why haven't I heard about this? I need to get my head out of the sand or something.
Let's talk about our Woz shirts we just got in the store, guys, while we're here. Make a quick mention of the Woz shirts. I'll bring up the women's shirts. We just put In Woz We Trust on the store. If you don't know the story behind this, Wozniak prints out his own $2 bills on official legal paper that are you guys have to just Google Wozniak $2 bill. But as you can see here, it's from the Department of Defiance, which is another Woz inside joke.
In Woz We Trust.
Yeah, he's a laser safety inspector. That's pretty important, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm really happy about these $2 shirts from these Woz $2 bill shirts. I can't wait to wear that thing around. Anyway, we've got a ton of stuff in the forum. I mean, on the website. But I'll move that over here and we'll talk about it later. How's that? Move on to more topics here. I don't even care about this. Now I'm just gonna move on.
I think that one was funny.
Was it?
It was basically a bunch of teenagers stole a car.
It's just gossip. I mean, it's not.
No. This is something that you think of. These are a bunch of teenagers who stole a car, and then after they stole the car, they paired their phones to the Bluetooth in the car, and then abandoned the car with no gas in it, and didn't delete their phones from the car.
Just another story of stupidity.
And it just so happens that the guy's car they stole is an Opsec guy who's like, oh, we'll just dig through this, gets his car back after like 90 days, checks it and goes, oh, they left their phones paired. And I got a picture here where it shows these are the people who are pairing their phones with the car. It's like, you guys are so stupid. And he's kind of tracked them down. So, yeah. Don't do that.
It's funny that there's a photo. They put the picture of their usernames for their I guess their device names here, but they were saying that their Instagram accounts and stuff like that match these usernames. So now people can go online and find these guys.
Yeah, he said that it'd be interesting to see the kid his Instagram matches that, and suddenly he's got 1,200 extra followers. It's like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on?
So
I should steal cars more often.
I thought it was kind of whatever, but idiots being idiots. Oh my god.
I just think it's interesting because it's like if you buy a used car, that's also something you got to worry about. Is that your phone may still be paired with the car. So if you sell your car and you have a car that has this kind of thing, delete the pairing out of the car before you get rid of it, just as another piece of security measure.
I'll remember that the next time I steal a car.
Well, even if you sell your own car, I mean, it's just the way the technology is integrated into these cars these days. It's terrible. Anyway,
let's talk about the new evil emperor in training over here, Mark Zuckerberg. So the free basics, which is their internet plan to give away free internet in India. Well, the Indian government was like, you know what, this violates net neutrality, because they were going to give away a bunch of it was basically a walled garden of Facebook and a few other things, And Mark Zuckerberg was going to be making money by harvesting data, of course. Nothing is free. Let's just remember that.
He's going to be harvesting data and putting ads
some open source programs are free, but they're like community things. But nothing from any corporation or company is free. So, yeah, it's a big data harvesting thing. Anyway, the Indian government was like, no, not happening. Violates net neutrality. I am so proud of I want to go to India and just hug some of these guys. Yeah. Good job, guys. Really awesome. They seem to be a little smarter than a lot of other countries. Anyway, let's just see here what he's got to say about this. He says that it's not going to keep internet.org out of India. So, they were against the 0 rating. They were against free basic, but Mark Zuckerberg still wants to figure out a way to get internet.org into there. He's determined to take advantage of these people, and he has some ideas. He's like, well, if we can't do it this way, we're just going to go around the regulations and put some drones in the air that have, Wi-Fi that's blasting out.
I just don't like the terminology that it's using. Like the actual quote here says, while we're disappointed with today's decision, I want to personally communicate that we are committed to keep working to break down barriers.
Oh, yeah. For him, it's all about for him, he makes it sound like he is like just being altruistic, and he's like he's just trying to be... He's trying to help the world. My issue
here is that he's using the internet with his little walled garden as in synonymous. It's like, well, let's get access to the internet. But what's the internet? Well, the internet is this coffee cup. You have access to this coffee cup, and that's it. The internet, man.
What do you make of this?
I'm glad that India was actually able to sort of see this for what it was, see it as a Trojan horse. Net neutrality issues aside, if he doesn't really characterize it as the internet and just, a Facebook information service that also happens to connect to the internet, then technically that wouldn't violate net neutrality, because think about, old America Online. Old America Online was this huge America Online message board that also let you connect to the internet. And so this would be like the crap AOL plan that AOL had in the very beginning that was, hey, you can use the AOL stuff, but you have to pay extra for the internet stuff. And so he could have totally spun it as a service like that and, and sort of skirted the whole net neutrality thing. But the people that were involved in India sort of saw this for the Trojan horse that it is. And so net neutrality issues or not, I definitely think it does have net neutrality issues, but I think there are ways around that for a corporation as big and with as much clout as Facebook. But at the same time, you generally have to look for what has historically been called the balkanization of the internet, meaning that the political city-states that we have, geopolitically don't sort of bleed over onto the internet, because there's no reason to do that. There's no logical or technical reason to do that. It's about control of information and sort of, changing the message that people get and sort of controlling what information people consume. And that is the thing that, in terms of human rights, we haven't really figured it out yet, but in terms of human rights, it will be fundamentally important. I could see a future where, the information on a Wikipedia type service is a fundamental human right, because you should be able to arm yourself with, that type of quote unquote basic universal knowledge. That's what the internet's for.
Yeah. Well, Zuckerberg, he's not fooling anybody. I think it's really funny if you guys scroll down here, there's somebody in the comments, and I'm pretty sure it's Zuckerberg, just going on and on, railing on people. This guy right here, Jay Maines. Let me put it on the screen. This Jay Maines guy, he's going in there. If you look, he's responding to everybody with
it looks
this
like it's
propaganda
just one argument with Doctor Strange there.
Well, if you keep going all the way through, this guy keeps showing up, and he is just spouting Facebook propaganda. And all I have to say is, Jay Maines, or should I say, Zuckerberg, you're not fooling anybody. We see you on there. All right, anyway, let's go on and talk about this new ATM hacking scheme that's kind of interesting. Now, this only applies to the freestanding ATM machines that you see at, bodegas.
The ones that are not, concreted into the wall.
Yeah, you see where bars and bodegas and restaurants in which do not accept cash and have a thing in the corner. Yeah. Did they say bodega anywhere else in the world? They don't say it here. They say it in New York.
I think that's a New York thing specific, and y'all can disagree with me and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never heard it anywhere outside of New York.
I want Jesse Ventura to say it. Bodega.
What I found interesting about this ATM thing is that the ATMs run on kind of an isolated network. so they very rarely, if ever, access the open internet. It's all done on a private, like kind of like a dark web, but it's dark web of the banks, and it's very, very specific.
Almost like
to
a
ATMs.
bank intranet or something.
Exactly, and you kind of tap into it. So you might have a cable that runs to one of these ATMs, but it's been wired through the system in such a way that it's off the open network, which looks to me with this kind of setup that they don't encrypt any of it, because
you just plug it in there. You get their, so they get their account number that way.
They get
their
the
card number.
transaction and everything that has to do with the transaction.
They don't get the PIN through that. What they do to get the PIN is they'll either, if you take a good look at the PIN pad or the keypad, sometimes there's something laying on top of it that can take it. Sometimes they've swapped it out, which is weird. There's
Sometimes
they've
just
methods.
added a mechanism to the top side of the well, that's like for stealing the actual card data itself. This is stealing the card data through the wire. But you'll have like an extra camera or something on the inside, or one of the extra little mirrors that's in there that might actually be
camera mirror,
recording your when you type in the PIN. There might be a camera over you or somewhere else that's looking at it. But a lot of times that's how they have to get your PIN. This is kind of scary.
Be really careful when you guys see one of these freestanding ATMs.
And if you do, take a picture of it and send it to me, because I would love and tell me where it is.
I would just take the damn box.
Bring
it back home and
plug
it up to the
go
network
and
and see what you
unplug
can-
the box, take it away, and plug it in, and then just send that to me, because I want to find out. I don't want the data that's on it. I just want to find out what they're doing.
We never asked you to send anything to us, because now we can get in trouble.
Yeah, I know. Well, I just want to know what they're doing, because if you can figure out exactly what it is they're doing, or how they're sending it out, or if they actually have to come and replace it, because they got like a USB drive in there, and I'm like, what is that doing? That'd be very interesting. That's an ad. You can click that
I
off.
was going to make this go to the next thing here, but yeah.
Anyway, I'm really interested to see what these guys are actually doing, not for anything other than scientific, educational purposes only, like dead serious.
I don't know, how easy would it be to create something like this that never mind. We can't talk about these things.
Yeah. Well, it's live. Hi. Can't even edit it out. It's one of those things that I'm very fascinated by. Who is it that is coming up with these really ingenious, big quotes for ingenious ideas to do this? Because I honestly think that it's somebody on the inside. It's not just some random person. Somebody knows something.
And they're not getting paid enough. They're getting taken advantage of.
That's what it seems like.
They're a victim. They're going to burn down the building.
Set the building on fire.
Set the building on fire.
Okay.
All right. This is kind of interesting. Earth is not as habitable as we think it is, according to, I guess when we probe the depths of space, we look at different planets and we decide if they're, we decide their level of habitability. Mm-hmm. They decided to run those tests on Earth, and they did. And they found out that Earth received about an 82%. They usually look for stuff that's like a perfect 100% score. Earth only received an 82%. It turns out that we're a bit too close to the sun.
What I think is interesting about this is, didn't they base the whole chart and everything that they've been, calculating all of these on, based on Earth data?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know. It's based on whatever lives on Earth, I guess. I don't know. It's a bit too hot. Based on Norway? I don't know. I don't know where they got this information, but they said it's surprising. But the thing about this is that it's weird to me to look for life based upon what we know of life here, because as soon as we go down into the depths of the ocean, we'll find a phosphorus vent that's venting out, like the water that's hundreds of degrees, and there's something living in it. And you're like, what the hell is living there? How is that possible? So there could be planets that have vastly different, temperature ranges that also support some type of life that we're not familiar with. It could be out there.
Dun, dun, dun.
It is out there.
The truth is out there.
I've seen it. Some guy with lots of cats told me about it. Now, a cat lady's one thing, but a cat man?
Isn't he the one who told us we never landed on the moon?
That cat man do whatever he wants. Just don't you forget it. Oh, God. Wendell, you've been quiet for a while. Let's see what's next on the list.
He's just face-palming off camera. That's what he's doing.
Okay, you want to weigh in on the Earth habitable stuff?
Go
ahead.
They're just saying that the Earth's on the inside of the habitable zone. The habitable zone is wider than the Earth itself. So, like, the Earth could be a couple of more radiuses of Earth away from the sun, and it would still be perfectly habitable. It would be more habitable than it is now. And I think it's interesting that they think it's a bit close, just based on, the geological history of the Earth and how much carbon dioxide and how much oxygen there used to be. I mean, think about, well, I get really far off topic here, but for a long time, there was not microbes that would break down trees. Like, there did not exist anything that would cause wood to rot. And so, the Earth was covered with forests, and then lightning strikes would happen and the forests would catch on fire. This is where a lot of our coal deposits come from. It's like, charcoal and whatever. Well, imagine a lightning strike, which, basically burns the forest down, and it just burns and burns and burns until it can't burn anymore. Or like when a tree falls over, because we didn't have bacteria that would break down, I think, lignin, the dead trees would just sort of pile up, and then lightning strikes would happen, and then charcoal, and then coal. And there's probably a geologist in the audience that's just like, oh god, no. But gross oversimplification, and the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere was also considerably higher before all of this, and so fires would rage quite a bit more brightly with those things. So I think it's interesting that we're sort of on the inner edge of the habitable zone, that Earth is a little bit too warm given those things in our geological history. So I don't think that we really know, like, astronomically speaking, I don't think that we really know. I mean, it could also turn out that, like, one of Jupiter's moons is reasonably habitable or could reasonably be terraformed. Mars would probably be habitable if it had magnetic poles and a little bit more gravity. It had a little bit more mass to it. Maybe someday we can scoop up the asteroid belt and shove it on Mars and, basically make it spherical and not make that take millions upon millions or hundreds of millions of years. And it's like, oh, look, we've got another planet. I don't know. But, it's sort of a lot of fun.
And that one's close enough to blow up if we get angry with it. I mean, and then we can rebuild it and make tons of money. Think about that. If we can terraform Mars, and then start some conflict over there, then blow it up and rebuild it, profit. See, I'm thinking ahead.
You're thinking like a United States Bilderberg Group member.
Yes.
Or I guess it's not United States, it's just Bilderberg Group.
Speaking of the Bilderberg Group, let's go ahead and talk about the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. This happens every year. It's a spot in Switzerland in a time that everyone goes there. They get together and they talk about, hey, we've got more money than everyone else combined. How about that? Oh, it's cool. It's neat. So it's the really, really upper echelon people who control the world or think they control the world. They get together and talk about the future of the world. And this year they focused on transhumanism, which is kind of an interesting topic. They have been talking a lot about the fourth industrial revolution. So we had, the first industrial revolution, and the next one the first one was just like, oh my God, we can build a train and stuff. And the next one, they're like, oh, we can manufacture, mass produce things. And then the next one, the third one, would be the computer in the digital age. And now the fourth one is going to be what they're calling the Transhuman Revolution.
Yeah, I mean, I found this article to be very interesting, especially when you look at some of the speakers and who they're paired with, which is also what this article writer was commenting on, is that the one panel called The Transformation of Tomorrow, it was chaired by Sheryl Sandberg, which is the COO of Facebook, and then the president of Rwanda.
The much lesser known president of Rwanda.
I mean, these two people are talking about, they're talking about the workforce, and that we're looking at, you get a lot of computers doing a lot of simple jobs, and you get more common requiring human element jobs like nurses and maybe gardening or something, but who knows. And then you look at the kind of people that will fit into those categories, work categories, and then the kind of robots that will be taking over this other style of workforce categories. And then it kind of decimates an entire set of working class individuals, and it will displace a lot of those. And then it's okay, well then what do we do? And you get to a point where they were like, oh, well, maybe we could just put like a universal income to everybody, which I'm like, a lot of people were like, oh, that's a good idea. But then it's, well, then those people, what are they going to do? They're going to do nothing except to alleviate their own boredom.
You kidding me? They're going to watch Springer all day. Jerry,
Yeah,
all day long.
And it was just kind of an interesting thought. I don't know. It's the whole thing kind of got really weird. This is one of those really in-depth articles that we could spend an hour talking about. And I wish I was there to actually see some of these panels, because this would have been. I don't think
if they'd let us in there or not, but I think that some of the interesting. I mean, we've talked about so many of these different topics before, but one of the things that they got into in this, and we'll get into this in a couple articles today. The artificial intelligence, the robots taking over, and the poor people getting even poorer because they don't have any work. They talked about that in the future of or a world without work. But the thing that I kind of want to talk about is, what if your brain could confess? Where they talked about the advancements in the technology that can tell what you're thinking. They can now hook up stuff to your head, and they can train with a few patterns, and they can start to distinguish who you are versus who someone else is. By your thought patterns. They can also start to recognize, when you think this, that means dog, or that means cat, or they've gotten it down to a pretty rudimentary phase. But the next phase in the technology will be, right now, you walk into a building, there may be face tracking cameras somewhere that scan your face and they hook up to a database. If in the future, possibly the near future, they can figure out a way to detect your brain waves without having to put anything on you, just with sensors as if they were scanning your face. If they could detect the energy transfers in your brain, the little tiny energy transfers, if they could detect that, they'll be able to not only know what you're thinking, but they'll be able to track you very effectively. And the implications and the applications for this are very interesting. Immediately everyone's going to think 1984 thought police, right? So we've got that, and that's going to be the whole government side of things. But I want to think about something else, because that's just the obvious one that everyone's going to mention. Marketing opportunities. You walk into a store, they will immediately know what they can put just maybe 20 years down the road. I'm not sure how long it's going to take for this technology, but you go to one part of the store, they've got a nice display case there. They're not going to harvest data on how many people walk by, which is what they do now. They've got like little sensors, and they 2,000 people walk by this kiosk or this end cap every day. Now they're going to be like, okay, this many people walk by and they think, oh, that's tacky. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that's great. Oh, that looks delicious. They'll be able to pull that data, and then they should be able to match it to who it was in their databases, saying, okay, this person showed up. We could tell their thought frequency. It was we could tell by the whatever in their brain, it was this person. And here's what they thought, and we have a database on them. That's a future that is probably going to happen.
And then
do you agree, Wendell, or do you think I'm way off on something ridiculous?
It is very difficult to predict exactly how this kind of technology is going to take place. I think that the first so first of all, marketing companies are going to be the absolute Orwellian nightmare, even ahead of governments, in terms of like data tracking and building a database on people and sort of knowing what they want and all. We're headed there just as fast as we can get there, as fast as we can spend money on it. There's tons of companies showing up in startups and that are venture capital darlings that are basically big data analytics companies that are just trying to mine every little piece of information. So I think for surveillance and mobile phone data and all kinds of implied data, not reading your brain necessarily, but every little data point that can go toward building a map of that's happening. I don't know. It's a lot to imagine, but I can tell you that this already happened once in the 20th century, and it happened with Sigmund Freud and some of the stuff that he was doing, and Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays was sort of one of the first advertising people. We've talked about him before, and with the expertise that Freud had, and I don't want to call it psychological manipulation, but there was definitely a psychological manipulation component to it. Bernays was able to leverage that for better, more effective marketing. And better, more effective marketing was basically just convincing people to do what he wanted. You eat bacon for breakfast because the people that had pork bellies, because nobody wanted to buy pork bellies, because why would you, was like, hey, we need to come up with a thing to do this. And so now bacon is super popular because it was basically created. He went to a bunch of doctors and said, hey, would you say that eating breakfast is more healthy than not eating breakfast? And the doctors are like, well, yeah, I mean, basically that's true. He's like, would you take a bunch of money to write an article that we could then use in our advertising? And the doctors were like, yeah, sure, we'll totally do that. And now like there might have been ethical considerations on that historically, but now there are absolutely no ethical considerations for anything like that. And so imagine the technology of today and the direction that we're going in that kind of an historical context. And so if those tools had existed for those people at that point in time, imagine the kind of tools that exist today and where we're headed. And so if you extrapolate, then what you're saying is not so totally insanely tinfoil hat, but it's hard to imagine how exactly that's going to take place. But we as citizens have to sort of steel ourselves against that type of manipulation, or it's going to be really crazy for society, and I have no idea how it's going to turn out.
To go ahead and show you guys some of the advancements that have already been happening here, a couple of researchers are already experimenting with these digital brain prints, or brain prints, not digital, just brain prints, and they've done some studies. Here are the people who are working on this. It's long names, but you can see there. And they were able to get a 100% success rate when they studied 30 different people, being able to identify the individual based upon the way they think. And 97% success rate when they tested 32 people. So they're still working out a few of the different things. And I guess one of the first applications for this, when it first gets started, is you'll be able to come up to your house and think of 3 different things. Think like fish, baseball, and helium. Those are your 3 things in your brain. You think of those 3 things and your door pops open. And it'll be really easy to break into anything in a frat house. You just go in and think of boobs, and it'll open right up. And you'll be like, hey, you got in. What do you know? Very easy. But yeah, that's the first step, and then we'll see what happens from there. Right now you still have to have the electrodes on the head type thing. But I don't know. Anyway, pretty interesting stuff here. I guess we'll move on. Moore's Law is over. I guess that's worth a mention, mainly because the companies say they don't care. Yeah. And by the companies, I mean probably Intel.
I mean, it's interesting because, we grew up hearing about Moore's Law, and it was always just one of those things that was referenced as that, the transistor count was going to double every year, and power was going to increase and all this other fun stuff. But then when I was reading through this, it was one of those things that I always just kind of took for granted. I never really thought to really dig into it because it was just, it's one of those things. People explain it to you.
Moore's Law.
Okay. But Moore's Law wasn't really a law. It was just a guy who worked for Intel who just happened to be like, hey, this is kind of interesting. We've been able to make these kinds of advances. And I think by this year, we're going to have like transistors of this count in our chips. It'd be awesome.
But Moore's observation doesn't sound very good.
Exactly.
Roger Moore's observation. That's that sounds got a great zing to it. No, it doesn't.
No.
Anyway.
Well, I can make a couple of predictions. So if we've said this before, but I'll say it again just because we do that a lot. When you look at like the i5 2500 and the technology, like you're just speaking about PC hardware. If you look at like the i5 2500, that came out in what, 2009, 2008, right? Something like there.
Yeah, about that. Something like that. 2009 maybe.
Computationally, in terms of instructions per clock, modern CPUs are not really that much faster. Modern CPUs like Skylake that we've looked at have added a lot of extensions and instruction sets to help do things like media encoding and encryption and sort of technologies that have come in vogue. And the processor clocks are generally higher. That the i7 6700K is 4 gigahertz out of the box, and the i5 the i7 2600 was what, 3.2 gigahertz, 3 gigahertz, something like that. So we're, in terms of clock speed, we're 25% faster. The number of instructions per clock have gone up a little bit, 7%, 8%, something like that, but not a lot. I mean, computationally, for general purpose computing, these CPUs have not gotten a lot faster. We're still rocking quad cores on the mainstream parts. We've got 8, 10 cores on the higher end parts and the server parts. And the server parts has exploded 36 cores.
But there's just no competition, so they don't have to do anything other than quad core.
Well, it's not just competition. It's also it's sort of a race to the bottom. And if you look at some of the technologies like FinFET was amazingly more complicated than they anticipated to get working. And so right now we're at 22 nanometers. We're just barely going to be able to do 10 meters. We were going to do Kaby Lake, which is 10 meters, Cannon Lake, which was 10 meters. And they've sort of said, okay, we're going to push that back. Now we're going to do we're going to do Kaby Lake, which is still a 22 nanometer process before we do, another die shrink. And so Intel's basically skipping a die shrink. And we also had the whole Devil's Canyon thing, which was basically another delay. So there was sort of an Intel processor release cycle. So this whole release cycle sort of been messed up. Plus the UEFI on the Skylake boards. If you looked at some of our build videos, it's like, wow, the UEFI on these were really, really rushed, because every board that we got from every vendor, the UEFI updates from the day one UEFI to, Skylake's been out for a few months. It's a night and day difference in terms of stability and features and all kinds of other stuff. And so Intel's really rushed it out. Intel rushed it out so bad that they let you overclock non-overclockable parts, and they're trying to repair the barn doors after the horses escaped. We're going to talk more about that in a minute, and that's going to be really insane. But if you look at the stuff that's going on here, these are problems with not just with the x86 architecture, but it's really hard for us to get faster. And so where have the improvements been in this with these increasing generations? PCI bus interface and memory interface and peripheral interface. Those are the things that have had major improvements. Skylake has huge improvements in PCI Express connectivity and peripheral connectivity through the DMI bus. DDR4 for the memory, although DDR3 at the top end and DDR4 at the low end, it's basically the same speed. The latencies are a little different. Latencies are really hard to do. Enter HBM. And so here are the predictions. I've got completely off track, but here are the predictions for that. HBM, basically you're going to put the memory on the CPU. Maybe the CPU is going to be soldered to the motherboard. Intel's tried to float the whole CPU soldered to the motherboard and make vendors, basically just have an i3, i5, i7 motherboard and call it a day. But motherboard vendors really don't want to do that, and who would blame them? But Intel's doing it with their OEM parts. They're doing it with their mobile parts. There are CPUs that are only available in BGA configuration. There are CPUs that are package deals where there's actually multiple dies on a package. You buy the package from Intel and you put it in your laptop. All the improvements here are not in the CPU. They're not anything really to do with the CPU. They're peripheral interface and their bus. And so the next big thing is storage and memory, making that lower latency and faster. And the way to do that is to combine them. And there could be a PC, 2 or 3 generations down the line, which is, 18 to 36 months out, where you start to see SSDs have a RAM type interface. When we were at Computex, there were specialty server components that was flash on a DIMM, basically, so that you could get the 10 gigabytes per second memory bus interface speed for that. So it's really a dramatic shift in the architecture of the peripherals to try to maintain program compatibility. So it's going to be an interesting future, I think.
What do you think about the statement that Intel made about dropping silicon and moving to something else for smaller than 7 nanometers, because they think that 7 nanometers is going to be the bottom range of the silicon?
And IBM already has some 7 nanometer stuff, I believe, but they're saying it's pretty much the bottom range as well. I'm pretty sure IBM already has some 7 nanometer stuff they're playing around with, but this is not even on the list of stuff we were going to talk about.
It was in the article in reference to Moore's Law being dead, and Intel made a claim that they were dropping this. They were going to drop silicon as their transistors after the 7 nanometer to get smaller than 7 nanometers. They were looking at, I think it was like graphene, or no, I'm sorry, it was carbon nanotubes, and there was another material that they were looking at. What do you? Do you think that's going to make a drastic change?
I think that's totally going to happen. But then we're going to be on 5 to 10 year release cycles as opposed to 18 to 24 month release cycles. I think we're going to go from silicon to carbon doped silicon. I think that we're going to end up having there's a new process that I was reading about the other day that dopes silicon with it's a very simple sort of carbon doping process, but it basically lets them have a lot more energy density and energy storage capabilities from the carbon side of things on the silicon. And so I think around 10 nanometers, I think we're still going to be using silicon for all of that. I think that a ton of 22 nanometer and 16 nanometer and 10 nanometer processes are going to come online because, right now, 22 nanometer in phones and things like that, this has been a lot of AMD's problem, is that AMD is not able to get fabrication time at 22 nanometer production facilities because everybody is trying to make all of their stuff run at 22 nanometers as a stopgap measure to not actually improve their CPU architecture. So it's like phones, which need to not have a lot of power hungry componentry. The easiest fix is just make everything to 22 nanometers, RAM, CPU, the whole 9 yards, and then you get an automatic power reduction bonus from that. So I think that a lot more fabrication facilities are going to come online. These fabrication facilities are hugely expensive. And so we're going to have to be talking about 5, 10, 15-year product release cycles in order to do that. And so, yeah, we're absolutely going to have to go away from silicon for things that are less than 10 nanometers. But I think that the response is going to be that the product lifetimes for 10 nanometers are going to be very, very much longer. And there's not really a lot of push on the software side, on the consumer electronics side, for things that are more performant, which is maybe that, you know, Linux and Windows and Mac OS are not creative enough to use the computational horsepower. There's not enough drive for it, which is sort of interesting because it's the first time that that's been the case historically. You know, the software has been pushing the hardware a lot of the times. I mean, look at Windows 95 pushed one of the single biggest PC upgrade, you know, things to ever happen to the market, because people were going from whatever to Windows 95, and even if Windows 95 was awful, people were spending an obscene amount of money to upgrade their computers because the Windows 95 experience on their old computers was so awful. But now with Windows 10, because Microsoft has slimmed it down to be able to run on crappy ARM tablets, well, not really, but sort of kind of, you need less hardware. Look, we're still at quad cores for the last, you know, 5 generations of Intel processors because it's good enough.
Windows 95 was the first time that I ever had a major upgrade that cost a ridiculous amount of money, like $2,000, and then I got home and loaded up Windows 95, and I was like, it didn't feel like a major upgrade. You know what I mean? It was like, that was the first time where I just like got home and I was like, oh, it's still kind of slow. What is this? It was fun. Anyway, that's a total non sequitur, but that was the one.
We got way off topic, but hopefully you live guys enjoyed it. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Probably, they better. I've decided they have.
Yes.
My name is Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
I've decided that you enjoy this.
Moving into some more international stuff, I think it's interesting that this next article here is talking about Russia planning to move away from Windows and into Linux. And one of the things that they mentioned was, we don't trust Microsoft not to give all of our country's people's data to the NSA.
Well, I think the thing is that even on Linux, I mean, once their stuff gets out of it, okay, their systems can be locked down and all that kind of stuff. Maybe a little bit better than Microsoft, and they're not going to be phoning home as much, and they're not going to be stored on American servers, but it's on the internet still, and the NSA has their fingers all over the place in the internet. So,
but one of the things that's been kind of hush-hush, but it was kind of insinuated, at least in this bit here, was that they're going to make their own, they're going to take the Linux kernel, they're going to comb through it and build their own Russian distro. So yeah, you're going to have, Linux.ru or whatever. It's going to be a Russian, whole internal to Russia version of Linux that they're going to grow themselves, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah, they're going to be rushing it out pretty soon. Interesting. Next up, couldn't help it. Let's talk about politics, because that's a lot of fun, huh?
Sure. Actually, I think this is kind of interesting.
On multiple levels.
On many. This one's really.
Let me say what it is. So Wendell can make sure he's got it open as well. So this is the U.S. Congress. They've two different congressmen have introduced a bill that would stop the states from banning strong encryption, and this comes right after New York has put a bill out there that's like, we're going to ban the sale of any device that's it doesn't have a backdoor, has encryption that's unbreakable. And they've got a Republican controlled House in New York. And then what's really disturbing is California, which is a Democratic state. The Democrats in California got together and like, we should do that too. Like, so if they're thinking that, and that's not the way I thought it would be. This is why
I find this occurrence to be really interesting, because not only was it a bunch of Republicans and a bunch of Democrats were like, hey, let's do this. Now, in this bill that was introduced, it's I think it's a Democrat from California and a Republican from Texas, of all places, are like, I think this is a big bad idea. And I'm very amused by the name that they came up with. It's called the Ensuring National Constitutional Rights of Your Private Telecommunications, also known as ENCRYPT. And I'm like, that's who was way up till like 3 o'clock in the morning, probably stoned out of their mind, going, hey man, why don't we just call it this? And then it came up with a whole series of words to make it like a backronym, not so much an acronym.
I guess it would be a backronym, but yeah.
I don't know. I think the whole thing is kind of amusing.
The whole thing could be summed up. I don't think the quote made it into this particular article, but Liu, which is one of the congressmen that actually has a degree in computer science, so props for that, said that, it's deeply disturbed. It's like the people that are the most, he said something to the effect of, the people that are most vocally against encryption are the people that have the deepest misunderstanding of how technology actually works. And so he's coming at this with his computer science degree like, no, I have a degree in this. Stop being dumb. Stop being dumb.
He actually used the word stupid to describe the House committee that they were saying, and the FBI who were saying like, we got to get rid of encryption. No, he was just like, guys, computer science degree, you're stupid. So thought that was pretty good. Yeah, stop that crap. We need the Ministry of Stop It t-shirts for crap like this. Damn so anyway, that's what's going on here, and hopefully that will make its way through. It'll be interesting to see how that vote goes. But let's go over to the UK, or should I say over to the surveillance state. The UK, you guys are becoming the portrait surveillance state. UK politicians want to greenlight plans to record every citizen's internet history for 1 year, and even the companies there are saying like that's going to be a little difficult. And the other thing that they're saying, and a lot of the critics are saying, is like, well, even if you do keep one's internet history for a year, just the storing and who's going to store that much stuff, and then how are we going to keep it secure from other people who are going to try to get at that data and use it against people? It's just.
But they also recommend that no encryption backdoors should be installed. That makes it better, right? Which just means that if everybody's using encrypted data history, all they're going to have is like this gigantic glob of encrypted garbage
to further confuse people. Here's another thing that some people have mentioned. They said that you can go to a regular website, and you know a lot about this being in telemetry and stuff, and that business. In the bottom corner, they put 1 pixel that loads up a muted version of Pornhub, and then in your internet history, you have Pornhub. Because someone put 1 pixel in the bottom corner of your screen.
Yeah, they've basically created an iframe somewhere on the page that loads up an entire page of ads that are, Pornhub or just random weird ads. And it's like an entire page.
Let's make a bunch of like religious websites and put the tiny little pixels everywhere that give you a terrible digital footprint. And so the people that are attracted to the website, like, maybe we'll call it preachersresource.com and have ideas for sermons and stuff. And then we'll just litter their internet history. Go ahead, Wendell.
Wasn't this the plot to that awful Sandra Bullock movie, The Net? Like she clicked a pi symbol or something in the corner of the web page, and then after that, it was all over.
I've never seen that movie. I'm kind of glad I haven't seen it.
Idea.
No, the one with the net was that the symbol was hidden on like a backside of a web page in whatever random internet site, and it was a link to a bunch of like government backdoor encryption. It was a lot of weird. Yeah, it was.
Sounds like a pile of bullock to me. Let's.
Well, here's the more disturbing thing. It's like, okay, your internet history, blah blah blah. This exists already, and the GCHQ and law enforcement has access to this for your text messaging history and your cell phone location data. The communications company, both in the U.S. and the U.K., maintain this information, and that is part of the reason. It's not cited in the article, but that is part of the reason why these people are saying, well, if we keep that, we should be able to keep your internet browsing history. And it's like, ooh, no, let's not.
Well, in that case, we might as well.
Your text messaging.
We might as well.
It's already logged.
At that point, you might as well just plug something into your brain, and we should be able to record everything that you're thinking. I mean,
okay, the
really,
UK.
Where does it stop?
The stuff we were talking about a little while ago about the brainwaves and all that kind of stuff. As soon as that technology, comes into existence, they're going to be the first place on Earth to use it. Every single camera that they've got like a camera pointing in every direction on every pole. There's a camera on every bird in the UK. There's a camera on every soccer hooligan's shoulder, and he doesn't know it because he's still drunk. He's just walking around.
You're going to get murdered.
I'll murder him back harder. It's okay. Liverpool. Is that a team?
Because this is so bad. The people in the UK might want to pause the video and write a letter or call call the person in Parliament and ask them what in the hell, get a hold of the guy in the House of Lords or the House of Commons. I don't know how that works. I probably should. It's like, similarly, the committee found no faults with the government's plans to force ISPs to store users' web history for 12 months at a time. This information, known as the Internet Connection Records, or ICRs, would be available to police without a warrant, with the report noting, "We heard a good case from law enforcement and others about the desirability of having such a scheme. We are satisfied that the potential value of these ICRs could outweigh the intrusiveness involved in collecting and using them." This is how disconnected from reality your governing body has become. They clearly do not understand the potential for abuse here and how Orwellian this really is. It is up to you, the constituency, to educate them. Please, go with their blessing and do this.
I'm telling you, every copy of 1984 that's in the House of Lords is sticky.
The one part about this, one of the quotes they put in here that I thought was really interesting was that the collection of data includes things that are not data.
They mean to say data as a digital term, but they're allowed to also collect anything you may write down on a piece of paper or something. They can collect that too, just right? Is that what they mean by that? Or any forms you fill out and submit to, like medical forms, or they've got all the bureaucratic crap that you do every day. They should have access to that too.
Who wrote that? Because I want to find them and ask them. I mean, this is England English, so it's like, pardon me, but I'm a dumb American, and I know you guys are definitely the upper hand on the English language, but what the F does this actually mean?
Data
what were you
includes any
thinking?
information that is not data.
I mean, yeah, is this a Star Trek reference? Data includes any information that's not data? I mean, I don't
think they're Star Trek fans, though. They don't want a utopia. They want a dystopia.
We're going to encode your internet history as a series of 7 faces that range from an angry frowny face to a green happy face. And if you have the red frowny face for too long, some people will show up at night to take you to a re-education camp. I mean, legislation 2017, 2018, I mean, how far away would that really be? It's like, we've got this amazing data set. Let's mine it to see how many of our citizens are, thinking about maybe becoming politically active. And let's shut that down before that even becomes a problem.
Dissent. Can't allow that. Anyway, let's talk about something cool that's happening in Britain. So, some team of researchers have figured out how to transfer data 50 times faster.
50,000 times faster than super fast, 24 megabits a second. It's like, wait, what?
That's a funny
This okay, so aside from the blatant ignorance of the person writing this, or maybe the audience that they're trying to write it to view this, they are finding a
Herald, y'all.
Yeah. Exactly.
The bottom line here is it's 1.125 terabits per second.
Through a single receiver.
It's a single. I thought it was
single
receiver.
It's a single receiver, but they said they were using.
Channels.
I think they were saying they're using 15 strands of fiber, which I'm sitting here going, well, if our current top speed on a single receiver is 100 gigs a second, or whatever it said it was, 100 gigs a second per strand, and we're using 15 strands. Technically, that would be with the 100 gigs. I think we're still using 2 strands for one transmit and receive, or are we actually doing bidirectional with this? Either way, once you get to the 15 strands, it's multiple channels and it's being really, really fast, but it's all being tied into a single receiver, and they're using a wide range of the light frequencies to translate it all. I mean, it gets really, really crazy how this all works, but the fact that we would be able to then take 15 strands of long haul cables that are 15 strands out of a long haul cable and suddenly increase the speed between this piece of backbone and that piece of backbone, and then drastically reduce the quantity of receivers that they're sending and receiving, or the receivers and transmitters, it'd be kind of interesting.
But nobody needs that kind of speed, though. I mean,
you say that for an individual, sure, but how much data do you actually think is going?
Nobody needs more than 24 megabits a second. It's a scientific fact.
Well, that's why I'm saying this is where that article kind of makes my brain hurt a little bit. You're right. Nobody needs more than 24 megabits a second.
Talk to Comcast. They know.
Those
guys are in the business.
Except Comcast needs more than 24 megabits a second, even if they're going to claim that you don't.
Good.
In other news, the tech is now sponsored by Comcast. 24 megs is fine.
So I called up Comcast at our new office, right? And we have some options. The local fiber is there, but not It's not been run to each individual door yet.
I'm sorry, I'm already laughing at the picture.
I'll get there. I gotta go ahead and throw Comcast under the bus real quick. Hold on a second, guys. So anyway, we've got a couple different options for gigabit. They're a bit expensive, so I called up Comcast because Comcast actually has fiber to every single
floor.
And I was like, well, there's a Comcast fiber line right here, so they wouldn't have to run it up from the basement, which are, there's a few other companies in the basement. Let's call Comcast. It's right there. See how much it is. And I was like, what can you guys do for me? They're like, 100 megabits a second for a few $100s. And I was like, no, I want gigabit. Oh, well, let me have one of our enterprise guys call you, but we can do it. The guy calls me a couple days later, and I was like, how much is it? And his response was like, oh, thousands. And I was like, well, how much thousands? How much thousands? You've made me use bad grammar, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And then he was like, well, lots of thousands, much thousands it is.
It's like, hi, I'm sorry,
like,
but
okay.
maybe you've misinterpreted this. I know you think that I'm some Joe Schmo who walked in off the street. Hey, man, I like some of that gigabit stuff, kind of like Google's got. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of money. Yeah, I get that. Thank you very much. That's why I'm calling the enterprise, connectivity here.
He didn't really want my business, and he was like, then I was like, well, I was like, man, this is Portland. You guys have to get with the game because there's 5 different options in this one building. And he was like, yeah, if there's options, you may as well just go with that. And I was like, excuse me? You have no interest in competition. None. Zero.
Comcast wonders
interest.
why their customer service is rated the worst.
He was like, if there's other options that are less expensive, just go ahead and go with them. He actually said, we don't really have any interest in competing with their prices. He said that to me on the phone, and I have it in writing as well. He sent me an email that actually encouraged me to go with the competition. So that's the kind of company Comcast is. However,
fantastic.
when it comes to Google Fiber, they actually are slightly threatened. We have here this card that they're sending out to people who are on Xfinity that are now in Google Fiber areas. Google Fiber's competing.
The fastest in-home Wi-Fi.
That's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. They have a check mark on the fastest in-home Wi-Fi.
I like it's 9x more free TV shows and movies on demand.
No one cares about that, do they?
I'm sorry, but with gigabit of Google, I have the internet, which means I have everything I could ever possibly want.
But that in-home Wi-Fi, and the other thing you got to think about because you're going to be renting that box from them, right? You need that box. You can't you can't get online with that. And then they're going to sell bits and pieces of your Wi-Fi to make their little network outside. It's a mess. Comcast, come on. Now I do want to say one more thing about Comcast. Something nice. The Comcast Cares Twitter account. Whoever's running that is a nice person, and I wish you had more power.
I'm guessing they're watching. Hi.
Comcast Cares, whoever you are, dude. Whenever I something like this happens to me, I always go online and moan and cry and say, what the hell? And the Comcast Cares guy usually pops in there and goes, what can I do to help? And he offers a bunch of solutions, and he's like, let me see if I can find you some package deals for your office. And I'm like, really, dude? You're like, he actually helps. It's whoever he or she is who runs the Comcast Cares Twitter account.
It's the Comcast AI.
It's the only person who seems to care because I happen to have a few Twitter followers. That's the only reason they care. I think.
It's a robot.
It's probably, I don't know.
I mean, that's what I would do. I would just write a Twitter robot that would respond to you in that manner. I mean, hell, I had Richard Stallman's robot following me around for a while.
I had, what the fuck? We should make a t-shirt of that or something, but that's creepy.
It was fun. I finally yelled at them and they finally said, ignore this guy. Like, thanks, bye.
Ghost stories around the fire with Kane. Richard Stallman's robot was creeping around in the bushes.
True story.
I don't know. That's enough of the Comcast stuff, unless you have anything to add to this, Wendell. It's kind of just whatever. No, not really. That's what I figured. Hey, now we can do an advertisement for the store. We're almost out of mouse pads already again, and I ordered a few hundred of these things. So you guys are awesome. But so are the mouse pads. I don't know. We don't order crap.
Yeah.
So there they are. What else is new in the store? We've got a bunch of new t-shirts in.
What's the status on getting the other things that we can't talk about yet, or we have talked about a little bit?
We can talk about the mouse. The mouse is probably a couple weeks out. It's on a boat right now. The mouse, the gaming mouse.
Resisting urge to quote pop culture.
What do you mean?
Nothing. Never mind. Hi.
Oh.
Wait here.
Damn it. Yeah.
I want this shirt. I really want this shirt.
We'll get you one.
I want one. I want one in the tube shirts, which is something that we've been.
We haven't really made an official announcement with that yet, but we have been trying out some of our new designs on shirts that do not have seams on the side. They're slightly higher quality, but as you notice, the prices have not changed.
Mm-hmm.
So we've actually, which maybe let's add another $1 to the price. No, can't do it. I'm always like taking care of the audience. So lots of cool new things in the store. Yeah, just go check it out because that's what really is keeping us alive right now. Certainly not the YouTube ads. And don't forget Lan Syndicate. We've got several people coming. We're going to announce some tournaments soon. We're probably going to have 2 big games that'll be our tournaments. I'm thinking Dota 2 and Counter-Strike, but some other people want League of Legends and I don't know, some other game. I don't know. Let us know again in the comments here. I asked on Twitter. I'll ask here. Let us know in the comments what games you would like to see as our big tournaments. We have some prizes coming in from a lot of different companies that are throwing some prizes at this. And then we'll have several small tournaments, like Half-Life 1 and Fistful of Hog. Maybe Dive Kick? I don't know. Just like some smaller tournaments, then we'll have some smaller prizes. But there's going to be a lot of stuff. If you guys show up, you guys are going to probably going to get some fun stuff. We have a lot to give back to the community. And I just want to frags, Zenotic, hang out and play some games with you guys. So if you guys can make it to Seattle on April 15th through the 17th, go ahead and grab your tickets. I've decided to leave them at the $75 price. We had planned on making them $90. We've already come to terms with the fact that we ain't breaking even. We're just going to have fun, and it's about you guys because you're awesome. So
we'll see you there. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited about it. We got the core Switch. It's sitting in its box. So I've been chomping at the bit because I want to take it out of the box and play with it, but we're moving. We're packing as soon as we're done with it.
Yeah, so literally we're turning off all the computers and packing. No more computers. We got to get down to packing this place up and getting out of here. So one of the cool things about having Kane here now is that we're going to run all the networks ourselves. It's great. And we'll make some videos showing you guys how we do these things.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, this is it's another interesting topic here. The Uber for friends. Millennials are lonely.
Yeah, it's because you spend all your day on Facebook communicating with people over text and randomly arguing with random people on the internet.
I wonder if the level of narcissism, the increase in narcissistic behavior is... I wonder if that's tied to the increase in loneliness at all. We would have to maybe get someone like the Freakonomics economics guy and have him really look at the numbers and figure out if that is. But anecdotally, it seems like the more we engage in narcissistic behavior and the more we sit around and stare at other people's Facebook walls instead of going out and doing things, the lonelier we become. Don't know if that's true or not.
So if anybody out there knows Dr. Dubner, I'm sorry, Stephen Levitt and Stephen Dubner. I can't remember which one of them is the doctor. I think it's Levitt. Levitt's the doctor and Dubner's the journalist, or maybe they're both. Anyway, if anybody knows these guys or knows how to get in contact with them, connect them to this little bit because I would be very interested to talk to them about this.
So the goal here is to really make the millennials less lonely. And Clay Kohut is the guy who's made Ameego. And the whole thing is it's kind of like Uber for friends. But you go online, you have to pay. That's the weird thing for me, is that you go online and you browse and you're like, someone come over. It's like, it almost feels like getting a hooker or a gigolo that doesn't have sex with you. You have to pay them for their companionship, but it's just platonic. They come over and chill, have a cup of tea, play some video games, whatever. You pay them. That's weird.
I have a different perspective on this, being familiar. Like, I don't want to reveal too much. But in Japan, this is actually kind of a normal thing that has existed for quite some time, although a little different spin on it. So in the early 2000s, late 90s, I think, and early 2000s, I'm not sure about now. I'm not sure if this is still a thing. There were devices that you could buy, and you would basically set a mode for, like, on the device. It was like, I would like someone to talk to. I'm interested in meeting people of the opposite sex. I'm interested in meeting people of the same sex. I'm interested in casual encounters, whatever. And you would set that on the device, and then somebody else would set theirs, and it was just a little wireless beacon thing. And so, like, if you ran into somebody on the train or you ran into somebody, you were in proximity for somebody, the two little devices would connect with one another, and then you could, use that as a basis to start chatting with somebody or whatever. And that was a thing in Japan, like, just a completely normal, I guess, thing that was not weird and creepy, I guess, in Japan. So now this is, I guess, just the Uber version of that, comes to America, I guess. I don't know. But this is not exactly new.
the thing that's weird to me about this is that the fact that you're paying for the companionship instead of pairing two people who may be lonely together so that they can alleviate their loneliness. You're hiring someone to come over, and I'm wondering if that is going to change the way a lot of people see hanging out and friendship. As for instance, we could look at. Sorry, go ahead, Wendell.
Well, it's not. So the journalist covered that, and the article really says that guy says, well, it is sort of paid at first, but really he hopes people sort of sees that as really the service for the app and not so much the person, even though the person is getting paid, and that they would become friends in real life so that subsequent encounters are not paid.
That's true, but I wonder if it's going to get the people addicted to the money and also start to train them, as in cultures that have tipping as a thing. A lot of the cultures, and this is actually a statistic from the Freakonomics book, a lot of the cultures that have tipping have a higher rates of corruption in government because people are trained that you do things for money, not because you want to help someone. You hold the door to get a handout. You carry someone's bag to get a handout. You do your job to get a handout as opposed to doing it to do the right thing or doing it to provide a good service. I'm wondering if this is going to shift some of the mentalities of some of the people, not all the people. Hopefully it'll be like, like Kohut said, and they'll meet and hang out and be like, oh, this is cool. Well, next time let's just hang out for free or whatever. But I wonder if some people are going to get trained that their friendship is valuable and they start seeing their interactions with people as, something that should be compensated. I wonder if it's going to shift the way they think about things.
I got 500 requests last week. I'm going to triple my rates.
You're a cool guy to hang out with.
There is, related to this, I don't know, there is a service that if you happen to find yourself in jail for some reason, there's a service that you can pay, and they will take over your social media accounts and post to your Facebook and Twitter and whatever, like as if you're in Europe for the duration of your incarceration. And this is actually a fairly profitable service. So it's kind of similar. It's like maybe you have a professional friend or whatever that's like, oh, this is Brick Tamlin, my professional Swedish snowboarder or whatever. Look at us out at doing whatever, and that would just be a thing. That would be interesting. I mean, for a while there was that company that had a short list of celebrities, and for like $50 or $100 or whatever, they would call your voicemail and leave you a voicemail message. And so, is this that much different than that? I don't know. Maybe.
All right, I guess we're going to talk about some hardware real quick. I am curious to know what you guys think about that in the comments. Uber for people, paying for someone to come over and hang out. What do you think about that? I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting because, I mean, let's face it, sex workers, that's one of the oldest professions in the world. And does that ruin how people think about sex? I don't know. I don't have any experience in this business.
I don't know.
Anyway, let's talk about AMD for just a second and their partnership with IO Interactive. This is going to be a quick mention, but their Gaming Evolved thing that they've been working on, well, it looks like this is going to be the first official big thing that's going to be using it. So that's cool to see. Maybe we'll get more of this in the future. But yeah, I don't know. That's just a quick mention, unless anybody else wants to mention anything on this. Anybody?
I don't know. This is the further underscoring a focus on DirectX 12 workload management, increased overall quality. I wonder if this is going to allow it. I didn't actually get a chance to read this all the way through.
Yeah, I didn't read it all through either. That's why I want to skip it.
We can go through. I mean, oh yeah, it does say Vulkan in the bottom there, so it'd be interesting to see how this plays out on the underlying tech. But
yeah, I mean, this is going to be a big title, so that'll be interesting.
That'll be cool to see.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
Next.
Solar freaking roadways. Solar
coming to
freaking
France,
roadways. Yeah. In France, we kind of badmouth solar roadways for a while. It seemed impractical, but France doesn't care. France just does whatever they want. They're like, they may be impractical, but we are France. I can't do a French accent at all. Did I offend anybody? Come on, it's impossible. They just
when you guys were ripping on this, I was sitting back going, ultimately, the practicality of this to cover the entire globe with solar panels, and or all the roadways, people are like, oh, when you're driving on it, parking lots, oh, you're gonna have cars parked on it, and this. Well, right now, all a parking lot is a giant griddle. But if that parking lot could suddenly become a giant griddle that's generating the power for the store, wow, is it a bad thing? It's going to cost too much money. Advancements in solar panels and solar technology. They did this whole thing in Sweden. Was it Sweden? Yeah, they did it was like a couple kilometers of bike path that they put it in there, and it did exactly what they expect. Actually, it gave them a higher yield of power than they were expecting, and it worked. It was cool. It actually was able to supply power, and it cost X amount in this. I mean, I had mixed feelings on it.
I think the Netherlands is what you were looking for.
Netherlands, that's what it was. Yeah. Sorry, guys. It's all Europe.
It's the same thing, right?
Geography, right? So anyway, I thought it was Sweden.
The Netherlands is a city in Sweden.
It's okay. Just like Amsterdam is a city in
Amsterdam, Germany. Yeah.
Amsterdam, Germany.
Pretty sure about that.
Yep. Anyway, I just, we look at solar panels and solar power and trying to create alternative energy sources and utilizing, it may cost a lot to initially implement this, but once it's there and it's being tied off, and we talk about current. There's a pun for you. I talk about current ways of storing energy. I think that right there is the way we are currently doing things. Yeah, it would be
currently.
Yeah. The way we do things right now, I think, aren't going to work for this type of idea in the long run.
Well, they're going to do 1,000 miles of it, so I guess we'll see exactly how good it is. 1,000 miles of this. It's 7 millimeters thick, and they said it should be tough enough for fully loaded trucks to drive over. Some pretty interesting stuff they have there. And how much?
It's going to be great until the 76 Ford Pacer goes down the road dragging its muffler, and then it's not going to be great.
Do they even have 76 Ford Pacers on the road in France?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the 84 Renault goes down the road
Renault
dragging its muffler.
Or a Fiat that just falls apart as it's moving. Isn't that what they do? I like Fiats. They're actually kind of cool cars, but they do have a reputation to uphold of being in the shop all the time. They're a great car if you're a mechanic. Anyway, they're a barrel of monkeys, as a matter of fact. Gravitational waves. Wendell, I'm going to let you talk about this for a little bit, but that's one of Einstein's last theories. Gravitational waves. Apparently, we have been able to detect these waves.
Yes, this is so incredibly exciting. You just have no idea. Einstein basically predicted that gravitational waves would be a thing, and there wasn't. It's really difficult to prove it. It's really difficult to sort of figure it out. It's really we devised. Long story short, you should go read the articles because they're really interesting. But it was postulated that we should be able to use gravitational waves to detect interstellar phenomena that involve things like black holes merging, and among other things. And so it turns out that was basically correct. Some people figured out how to set up a super sensitive experiment, and we basically heard through evidence in gravitational waves an event where two black holes collided about 1.3 billion years ago. And for a brief few milliseconds during that event, the energy output from the collision of two black holes was about 50 times more than all of the energy output of the visible universe combined. So when you look up all the stars that you can see, the stars that we can see with our instrumentation, everything that we can see in the entire universe, about 50 times the energy required to have all of that stuff, the energy output of all of that stuff for a few milliseconds was expended in this interstellar event about 1.3 billion years ago, which of course is just arriving at Earth. And it was in the general direction of the Magellan cluster. And so we were able to determine the mass of the black holes involved as a result of being able to read the gravitational waves, because of the whole energy equals matter times the speed of light squared. And we were also able to tell the general direction, which is in the general direction of the Magellan cluster. And so it was just super, really awesome, exciting. But the most important thing is that this means we should absolutely be able to do warp drive. That should totally be a thing. That should totally be possible because gravitational waves.
Sweet. That's the takeaway. Warp drives coming soon to Best Buy and Walmart for about $100.
I can't wait to put one in my DeLorean.
Which just means that, so like gravity waves, like gravity's not really, gravity is an emergent phenomenon of mass. Mass distorts space-time. And so if you have mass and you do something with the mass, it stands to reason that, you're going to have a little bit of a ripple effect, I guess. But it's totally proven. But even just basic things, like, we still don't understand. It's like when if you're in space and you throw a thing, it just goes on forever. Why does it go on forever? We don't know. We don't know why it goes on forever. We don't know why inertia is a thing. And something gets caught in the gravity well is a thing that is going on forever, but also pulled from something in the middle. And so the Earth going around the sun is the Earth having inertia going in one direction, but also being pulled toward the sun at basically the same rate. And so it never actually moves. It just sort of, because of the distortion of space-time. But why something goes forever, we don't know. We just, something like that we just don't understand. But gravitational waves are a ripple in space-time. It's not as if gravity, the source of gravity is, a particulate source or something else like something we understand. Gravity is an emergent phenomenon of the distortion of space-time as a result of matter being there, which is, so that's sort of fun.
Hope your minds have expanded a little bit.
Yeah.
Not outside of your head, but hopefully they've expanded a little
bit.
Maybe
it's the universe's way of trying to draw, and we just haven't been able to figure out the right set of spectrum of all the little things. It's just doing like a spirograph on the universe. Like, hey man, let's just do this for a while.
Well, I read
Proof
one thing
God.
that the wavelength of this thing is actually within the if it were sound, it's not sound obviously, because the wave is compressing and expanding the passage of time, inertial reference frames, but the frequency at which it operates is within the human hearing range, which is not anything to do with anything. Like, that's not really true. It's just that the number happens to be the same, like as if it were a sound. But it's not a sound that we can hear because it's not vibrating the air, it's vibrating time and space.
So time and space is kind of like an ocean, you're saying? I mean, that's the only thing, that's the easiest, sure it's not, but that's one of the easiest ways to visualize it in your brain. Maybe? Like a body of fluid? I don't know. It ripples.
So now I'm waiting for the young double slit experiment, but with gravitational waves. That will be a lot of fun. Constructive and destructive interference with gravitational waves. That would be amazing. Blam. Not time machine. Blam. Warp drive.
But what if it was, you're right, what if it was blam, time machine? I mean,
I think time probably only goes forward.
Who knows?
That is true until we prove that it's not.
That's too deep, man. Too deep for this. Speaking of, I have no segue for this, but let's just look and see what's going on in Singapore. Singapore, they're about to start 3D. What's that?
There's going to be a whole new class of Yo Mama jokes. Yo Mama so fat they are able to detect her movement on gravitational wave detectors.
Oh, we need that T-shirt.
Wow. She's got her own satellites. Anyway.
Singapore, they're about to start 3D printing houses. Well, they're thinking about it, but the idea is that the Singapore Center for 3D Printing is going to start printing one floor at a time, off-site in a certain spot at a concrete, very inexpensive, and then moving them into the city and building the buildings one store at a time with just blocks, stacking them up. So it could allow for them to rapidly build buildings that are very affordable.
That's generation 1. Generation 5, they're just going to set up a piece of equipment in the middle of the damn city, and it's just going to go, blah, 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 and you're going to have a big building.
And
that's
on
the sound
Monday,
it's
you'll
gonna
rent
make
an office that'll be open on Thursday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not bad. Singapore is insane. I wish it wasn't so hot there. I really want to go, but it's like, every time I go, I look at the climate or the temperature readings, and I'm like, ooh, about 35 degrees Celsius, about 38 degrees Celsius, 240% humidity. Ooh, it's a bit hot. No.
I'm just going to get an air-conditioned hamster bubble, and that's when I'm just going to wander around Singapore. And people are like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I'm bringing my climate with me, yo.
Oh, God. Yes. All right, what's next? Oh, rabbit
my walking
brains.
movements will generate the electricity that's powering the air conditioner.
I'm very excited about these rabbit brains. Speaking of cold things, they were able to long-term cryogenically freeze rabbit brains, and they recently brought it back, and it's almost in near perfect condition. For the first time ever, they were able to bring back a mammal brain in near perfect condition.
Yeah, they didn't. It wasn't in the Normally, when you freeze something like this, you get a lot of cellular degeneration, and when you thaw it back out, you end up with like this cracked and broken and they were able to bring it back to
that's the scientist in the room. Like, how is it?
It's terrible. Oh god, just put this over there. Anyway, so this one actually comes back, and it's near the same state that it was when they put it into the deep freeze.
You guys want to get hypothetical and deep for just a minute and ask some questions of the audience and stuff? I'm going to do it anyway. So, cryogenic. Of course, we've got some anti-aging stuff on the horizon. You know, I'm probably going to start taking whatever they come out with because I want to live a little longer and see what happens and watch London become the thought police and all that. And while the rest of some other places in the world are like, "What are you doing, man? Just snowboard."
I'm going to nickname you Fry. Continue.
Do you guys want to be cryogenically frozen? I mean, with your brain, for instance, and you'll be frozen for maybe 60 to 100 years, and then they'll bring you back, and you'll have a new body, an organic body that they'll generate based upon your DNA that may or may not look like you did look. But I mean, would you guys do that? Let's just say that the cost for this, it's way more than what I'm saying, but let's say the cost for this is about the same as whatever you paid for your house that you're living in, or about the same as your monthly payment on your rent. If it was about that much, would you cryogenically freeze your brain? That's the thing that sucks about this, is that only the uber wealthy are going to be able to afford stuff like this. So, let me tell you guys where to send the checks. I'm Robert. I'm going full Robert Tilton right now.
I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 fake street.
Full Robert Tilt. Going. So yeah, I don't know, Wendell, would you cryogenically freeze your brain? And in anticipation of coming
technology. Back. I've learned in most things with technology, they really don't get it right until version 3. So I have a feeling that if I did this and I came back, I would probably be like Biff from Back to the Future, like Future Biff. You know, the one that had like the helmet, has a few short circuits, something like that. Probably not with the violent tendencies, but probably with the stutter and probably with the weird clicking noises and the weird facial tick and that sort of thing. Probably that's how it would be. Got to wait for the third version of the technology, and then it'll be fine.
All right, well, let's say, like, you know, by the time you're 70, 80 years old, maybe they have it by then. What do you think? They're on version 3, and it's really they've actually brought back some rabbits, and they're like, hey, we've got the brain working, and this rabbit is hopping around. It's kind of weird.
Probably would give it a try. Around. I mean, why not?
Yeah, we'll be back in a. So yeah, I guess toward the last episode of the Tech will be us saying like, all right, guys, we're signing off. See you in 100 years.
At which point, we're gonna come back, and all the technology that we currently use for this kind of stuff is gonna be so old and archaic. People are gonna be like, "You use a what?" I don't even know what that is. That makes no sense.
Yeah,
I have no idea what you're talking about. The internet? What is that?
I'll share a Skunkworks project that some guys and I have been tinkering with. Not really a lot done, but I'll share this with the chat. This might be something interesting. So I think that there's probably money in building an interactive proxy for you that you train that survives after you die. And so I think that the stuff that the Chinese posted in terms of artificial intelligence and some other open source stuff that exists out there is good enough that we could have a service online where you interact with a webcam through a program, and an operator on our side sort of takes and monitors that. And the software basically interviews the person, and they are able to construct their post-death interactive thing where they're able to tell their children and grandchildren whatever they want, but also respond to questions. It's like, yeah, it's not true. Artificial intelligence is not downloading your brain, but it would be good enough. And if you could ask somebody to sort of anticipate the questions that their loved ones might ask them after they've died, then you could have sort of a basic interactive program, but done with video and done with text. And then the operator on our side would sort of help cut it together and sort of help make it sort of go there. This has been in movies, like the really awful Will Smith, iRobot thing, where the guy had like the little holographic thing. He's like, oh, you're not asking the right question. You have to ask another question. And then, they ask a question. The technology is sufficient to understand and interpret those kinds of things. So can you imagine, walking up to somebody's grave and being able to interact with them and ask them questions like, who are you? And, what did you do for a living? And, blah blah blah. It's like, oh, I'm in a relation, and da 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 da. It's like generic throwaway response number 37. It's like, oh yeah, well, nice to meet you. How's it going? Blah blah blah. I really think you could probably make an insane amount of money doing that.
That is creepy.
I just kept thinking of the remake of the. I kept thinking of it when as you were talking. I kept thinking of the remake of the Time Machine, and it was the library's internal computer system that was designed to be the interactive library and answer questions and interact with library/museum goers in a manner that allows them to appear like a real person.
Yeah, the AI is obviously not going to be good enough to handle anything, but we're talking basic chatbot level stuff here. Having some people read some scripts and do some stuff, it would go really well, and it would be good enough. And yeah, it wouldn't be any good, but it's like I'm your daughter. Why did you run away or whatever? And it's like, oh yeah, that's one of the questions. So let's play it back and do whatever. From a service standpoint, we as operators could monitor the questions that are being asked and sort of help the program along, being stewards of this sort of interactive program. I really think like lawyers and stuff would sign off on this too, because lawyers that are doing estate planning and trusts and things sort of have to deal with these messy situations, and if they can just plunk them down in a chair in their office and have them go to town reading through this computer program, I think a lot of lawyers would be like, yeah, let's have you use the interactive will bot 5000 for this, and we'll have your legal document, but we're going to build this interactive thing that your bereaved and next of kin can interact with, and it's totally not weird and creepy at all, I promise.
It's no different than having that videotape where you're sitting in the funeral home and you've got the casket that's open, and then they've got the screen that shows up, and like, we're just going to play you a short video from the deceased. I mean, that's no different than that.
I don't know. Think about this. Think about it this way. What if the Willbot 5000 or whatever, or the robot or the voice that's on the tombstone? What if that pulls from your social media data and also your shopping history, and just pulls from some of these databases? So if you're talking to the Willbot and maybe someone died, and you've got the bereaved sitting there asking questions, like maybe a sibling, a brother and sister, different ages, different sizes, obviously. They're asking questions like, okay, well, who gets the most money? Well, the thing's going to go and look at the purchase history and realize that person purchased 15 pairs of shoes in the last 10 years for the girl and 2 pairs of shoes for the boy. So that's about the ratio of how that person felt toward the two of them.
Ideas.
So they're going to split it in that way.
Think about the marketing data, though. Think about, if this became $1 billion company, then building the software is like, can I plug into your bank records, and can I plug into your stuff, either now or at the time of death, but preferably now. And it'll go through and mine it, and it's like, oh, I see you eat Indian food a lot. I'm going to go ahead and incorporate all that into the program. And then you could interact with yourself, and it's like, what's my favorite color, and what da 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 da. And for the ones that it gets wrong, you can just correct through natural language. And it's like, no, I really like Indian the most. And it's like, okay, that's fine, whatever. And so you could really perfect the question and the interactive part of it, and it really wouldn't be that big of a deal. And yeah, it needs a human operator to do it, but I think that probably, the first couple versions we would only sell to like the really wealthy people that would really pay a lot to get it right. But then eventually there would be the Walmart version where you can just go online and do it yourself, and it'll be fine.
It's always the Walmart version. And, yeah.
I mean, as narcissistic as people are, imagine when the millennials get to the point where they're dying. It would be like, I don't think the baby boomers will do this because they still struggle to figure out their television remote. But I think the millennials will absolutely do this.
We need to. All right. Sorry, guys. The Tech Syndicate's over. We're going to be making this company now. If you'd like to support us, we're going to be making the Willbot 5000
on Kickstarter and Indiegogo.
Yeah, both with xylophone and violin music to make you give us money.
I think it would be cool if I lived on after I died as some sort of bot on the internet. I mean, if nothing else, I could live on as a mud. I've already got that. I could just have it. It would be fine.
I wonder how many people's heads that went over, but Wendell the Mud. we need to make a bacronym out of Wendell to make it the Mud.
Already got the code base for that.
You really have a mud you're working on?
I have a mud that I did from like the time I was 9 to the time I was like 16. So it would be fine. There's a lot of my personality in there.
I need this mud. Where can anyone get this mud? Can we let people on the forum play this mud?
The bad news is I think I do have a copy of it, but the bad news is that I think I would have to have an Atari ST300 to run it on, I think. So
I have to update it. Hopefully the code.
Well, I've got a Commodore 64. Would that work?
I don't know if it's going to be very accommodating. Bit muddy.
God, I hate you sometimes.
I guess it's worth Atari.
No.
Look what you started. This is your fault.
Yes. It is my fault.
My seg fault.
Well, let me see if anyone's still watching. If we should even go on anymore after this. Well, surprise.
I think we just actually got 5 more viewers. Woo! Hi guys, how you doing?
Should we apologize?
Welcome to the new show. This is the Punisher. You come here for your punishment.
Maxwell's Demon. How about it? Maxwell's Demon is a weird entity that produces work out of nothing when 2 light beams connect, but they've actually made it. Is that correct, Wendell?
The worst thing about this article,
the guy who stands behind the armchair physicist and points at things. You
guys should go read the article, because the author on this article did an amazing job putting this together in a way that makes sense. Like it is more than 3 standard deviations away from the mean in terms of how well it's organized for an article on physics and how accurate it is at describing stuff. And I will only butcher it in my sleep deprived and the live state of the show and all this other kind of thing. But Maxwell's Demon, this is another interesting physics phenomena that happened this week. And it's like, oh, why did this happen during the gravitational phenomenon week? Because it's going to take us a little while to sort of set it up and explain it. But Maxwell's Demon is a really interesting thing. So, okay, here's the premise. Imagine that you've got a big box filled with a gas that's, basically it's reached equilibrium. This is sort of a special thing that happens in physics. And this gas, if you imagine the gas as a large collection of particles, even though the gas overall in the box has reached equilibrium, it's easy to imagine that there are some particles in the gas that are moving faster than others and some that are moving slower. And so Maxwell's Demon is basically a gatekeeper sitting at a door to the box that will let out the fast particles but will keep in the slow particles, or will let out the warmer particles but will make the cooler particles stay in the box. And so eventually, as the gas is bouncing around the box and there's stuff going on, the demon is letting out the more energetic particles, and so that will cause the gas inside the box to cool. And so outside the box, you've got an energy differential, in other words. And so the Maxwell's Demon is that now that you've got the temperature differential from a system that was at equilibrium, you should be able to use that to perform work. And physicists have always sort of explained this by saying, it's like, well, it's the net amount of work is still less because the demon has a memory of what has happened, and the energy required to erase the demon's memory, it's just this really sort of contrived thing. Well, physicists have actually built an apparatus that follows this, but not with gas, with light and LEDs. And so they're doing pulses of light to a thing where the more energetic photons that come out of the LEDs, something happens to them that's different than the ones that happen to be less energetic. And they're actually setting up the system to do work. And work is happening, but it just signals that, not necessarily the laws of thermodynamics have been broken here, because in this situation, the second law of thermodynamics is not conserved if you're actually able to do this Maxwell's Demon setup thing where you can take a system at equilibrium and then make it do work. That's crazy. That violates the law of second law of thermodynamics. But they've produced a physical apparatus that could maybe be used to demonstrate Maxwell's Demon with LEDs and photons. And so now they're going to be able to use that to produce a better mathematical model of the situation. And I'm sorry I've droned on about it, but it's just very fascinating, and we thought we would share.
I wonder what the applications for something like this would be if we could harness Is there anything we can do with it other than observe the phenomenon and go, that's kind of funny? I mean, is there any practical application for it?
If they've done a good job setting up the experiment, new physics is going to come out of it. The worst thing that could come out of it is that it's some kind of perpetual motion machine, which it absolutely is not going to end up being that. But it's just funny because on the surface, it's like, they're getting energy out of a system that should be at equilibrium. That's not good. That's not good for the second law of thermodynamics. So it's not really that that's going to be the case. It's just that this experimental apparatus is going to be used to help us improve our math, which is probably going to lead to the discovery of new physics. And maybe in 10 or 20 years, maybe if this is an actual legit thing, those guys will get the Nobel Prize. Probably the gravitational wave people are going to get the Nobel Prize first, though.
Maybe they'll get it at the same time. Maybe. Just saying.
All right, we've got a couple. If you guys are just joining us, you've joined us. We've got a couple more big things to talk about. Then we're done. The iPhone error 53 is plaguing the iOS devices that are being updated, but it's pretty much bricking some phones, which is not nice. Error 53, as you're updating to the new iOS 9, but it's mainly happening on devices that have been repaired by third-party repair shops. And particularly the finger thing or the home button or whatever. I'm not sure. I don't know.
It's the Touch ID, isn't it?
Touch ID?
The fingerprint reader.
Let's see real quick. How many people in the audience have an iPhone? Let's go ahead and test that out. Hey Siri, look up blue waffles. See, now we'll just wait for the comments here and see how many people are.
Hey Google, banana, banana, banana.
Okay, Google. Go to epicpants.com. Anyway.
Okay, Google.
Oh, yeah, it's okay, Google.
That's okay, Google. Directions to hell.
People here. Okay. Anyway. Okay, back to what we were talking about. Error 53, Wendell. You want to talk about any of this? Is it just kind of funny or?
So Apple is saying that the reason they're doing this is because the fingerprint sensor has been changed and they want to lock the platform down because they don't know if a weaponized fingerprint sensor could be used to compromise somebody's iPhone. So the iPhone literally marries the fingerprint sensor, and if you something bad happens, fingerprint sensor gets disabled, blah, blah, blah. The reason that Apple says they're going to do this is because of Apple payments. But this doesn't really make a lot of sense because I think the iPhone 5... maybe the 5S doesn't have the capability to marry the fingerprint sensor. And if you do tamper with it, it's just like, hey, fingerprint sensor is disabled. Historically is what has happened. It's like, yeah, okay, all right, fine, whatever. The fingerprint sensor is disabled. You can continue on. And so the error 53 bricking the phone is probably just sloppy work on Apple's part. Not unlike the other bug that's in iOS right now, which is if you set the phone's date to January 1st, 1970, it bricks the phone. Probably just a really awful, hilarious bug. But again,
Maybe.
Apple, you don't own your hardware, so they can do whatever the hell they want.
You guys ready to talk about Twitter for just a little bit? All right, so Twitter, they don't make any money. And a lot of people use Twitter and they think about Twitter as like this gargantuan company. It's a giant social media thing. A lot of people, especially if you go to San Francisco, think of them higher than Facebook and that sort of thing as far as just how cool and all that stuff it is. They don't make any money. They really don't make any money. And they haven't really made any money. That's pretty much it. So right now they've got a new squad of people that have been going on there and censoring non-politically correct viewpoints and that sort of thing. What's going on here? What do they do? Why would they be doing this?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what's going on here. Two things. One, these millennials have never read 1984. Two, they're grooming Twitter for buyout for a major media company. Dollars
Bingo.
to donuts, somebody like Disney is going to buy Twitter. You know why? Because Twitter can be used to influence a huge number of people, and it doesn't matter that it's insanely cash flow negative to a company like Disney, who would benefit from this kind of thing. This
Oh, yes.
whitewashing, it reeks of Disney or something like Disney, like a media company like Disney. And so I would say this will happen, and then the hullabaloo will die down, and then Disney will be like, hey, guess what? We're taking over Twitter. It's going to be amazing. Disney-Twitter partnership.
What if it's one of the big media organizations like Time or NBC? I mean, a lot of these news organizations.
One of Rupert Murdoch's outfits.
I mean, one of these big
National Geographic brought to you by Twitter.
No, really. I mean, they all use Twitter as every single time you get on, they're like, well, look at our Twitter this, look at our Twitter that. I mean, all these big media organizations using it. I mean, they also could be in the running for that kind of thing. I mean, Disney's definitely on my list of people, or what list of companies I think would do it. What if it was Walmart?
Walmart, huh?
Well,
that's if I was Walmart, that's what I would be doing. I'm like, let's just buy Twitter because it's Walmart.
This is the lesson that media companies have learned the last 5 years. Let me sum it up for you. If they own your childhood, they own your adulthood and the nostalgia. If you look at Star Wars for Disney, the whole Lucas thing, they knew their data analytics. They knew exactly how big it would be. You know, with one movie, they've basically made back their ridiculous Lucasfilm investment, because the people that saw Star Wars in the 70s, if they just follow the same formula, they're going to make a completely, generic movie that basically rips off A New Hope completely. Spoiler alert. And they don't have to do any original work. They just sort of remake the same thing and do it again. Disney is amazingly good at that. They're able to take, fairy tales in the public domain, recycle them just a little bit, sort of punch it up, and all the Disney stories basically follow the same format. Things like all the comic book movies now. We all grew up with comic books, and comic books are really amazing. Now we're older, and we've got a lot of disposable income. And yes, of course, we want to see all of the Marvel stuff, and we want to see Stan Lee having a really amazing good time, because Stan Lee's, a super awesome dude. This is just, what's going on with these people. These things happen in our childhood, and now the media companies sort of own this stuff, and they're going to churn it out because that's what this generation wants. Disney sees that now, and if Disney owns the current generation's childhood, your children's childhood, or people that are growing up with whatever, depending on what age you are, I don't know what age I'm speaking to, then in 20 years, they're going to be able to make an arbitrary amount of money because they've basically locked up all the merchandising and franchise rights and things like that. Lucas made all of his money not off of the movies because he sold the rights to the movies, but off of the merchandising, which in the 70s was not really a super hugely valuable thing. But look how much influence that has led. And this is what the media companies are really about. It's about influence. It's about, people like us, we influence you guys because it's like, hey, we're going to talk about stuff. And hey, we're going to look at this amazing thing. And hey, we're going to put these wooden blocks together and make this super interesting project. And then you guys go buy stuff. And, we do it for good. But media companies sort of want to own and control that, and sort of control the message and sort of put a positive spin on it and this kind of thing. And this is true for the general populace. And so this is why Disney controlling Twitter is sort of a thing, because it leads to the sort of the consumerism component of it. It's a hugely complicated system, but it's really interesting.
So I'd say Twitter's days are numbered. Whether years, maybe I don't know. Maybe it's days, maybe it's years. But I don't think Twitter,
under its current ownership,
yeah, under its current ownership, it's numbered. And then if it's purchased by someone like Disney, it's going to change a lot. So.
Yeah.
The only dynamic these media companies haven't figured out is that there's not really a lot of loyalty to these platforms. And so I think you're right when you say that people will just move on to the next thing. Look how quickly MySpace died. That was a Murdoch thing, wasn't it? Murdoch was like, hey, let's buy MySpace. I don't remember. But then MySpace was gone immediately.
Fox? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Now it's
and so
like
Twitter can be gone immediately because of the internet.
Yeah. All right, that's pretty much it. We have one more thing to talk about, but we didn't even mention this before, but I think we should do this as a separate Rant 30 because I want more people to see this standalone video and share it. We want to talk about Intel pushing their CPU microcode update that's crippled the non-K CPUs. They've let the horses out, and now they're trying to seal off the gate. So it's
So I can try to give a 30-second summary of that.
Yeah, 30 seconds. I want to do like a 3 or 4 minute Rant 30 to talk about this because I think it's important that the people share that as a separate standalone video. So here's the 30-second version, guys.
So Skylake, you got the K parts that are overclockable. That's cool. Some motherboard manufacturers, like ASRock, figured out that the base clock was not locked on non-K parts, which means that you could overclock a part from Intel that's not necessarily labeled for overclocking. And the overclocking actually works really well. On some of the Xeon parts, it was pretty common to be able to hit 5 gigahertz, using B clock overclocking. Now you couldn't, the multiplier was locked and some other things, but the CPU and the board, things that are in hand, you could hit 4.5 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, but it's a little unusual chipset. You have the C chipset.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really, really interesting. But it's Xeon, server parts. You don't normally overclock Xeons, this kind of thing. Well, in Intel processors, there was a bug in the Pentium, which was way back a long time ago. There was a floating point bug that was really kind of bad, but not like super bad, but it was kind of bad. And it was not fixable in software. Not really. It had to be sort of fixed in hardware, which meant that there was a costly sort of product recall. After that, Intel has been very serious about having the ability to fix problems like that with the CPU with something called microcode. And so now on modern CPUs, the microcode is very, very powerful. You can completely change the way that the CPU operates with a microcode update. The microcode updates are not married or burned into the CPU. They're actually loaded into the CPU at runtime by the UEFI or by the BIOS on the computer. And the microcode updates are also cryptographically signed. If the microcode updates were not cryptographically signed, an unscrupulous person or a state intelligence agency could load microcode onto your CPU to, for example, detect when you were trying to generate a random number with your CPU and then make it do something squirrely that would be completely undetectable to you. That's how powerful the microcode mechanism is on modern CPUs. Well, Intel, sort of sensing the problem that this could catch on like wildfire and sort of upset their marketing plans with the base clock situation, I guess, on Xeon, decided that they would fix that problem with a microcode update. Now, the bad news is that when there are bugs in CPUs, and there are bugs in CPUs, those are also fixed in microcode. So because it's cryptographically signed, it's not as if you can cherry pick the updates that go into microcode. You can only use an older microcode that doesn't fix the overclocking that's allowed on non-overclockable parts. And so, like Apple, is Intel moving in a direction where you don't own your CPU? You would have to run a CPU with an older microcode in order to continue to enjoy your overclockability. And Intel is sort of trying to lock out the overclockability after the fact. We don't agree with that. We don't like that. We don't think that it's like, mistakes were made at Intel. They shouldn't try to retroactively fix the problem for marketing reasons. That may not be ethical. We're not sure. We want to sort of look at it in a video, but we sort of also want to know what you guys think. Plus, also, all the information is not in yet. This is just what it looks like, and we want more information. But it's really hard to find information because Intel spends a lot of advertising money and a lot of support. Obviously, we're the, the outsiders in the room, and we also don't really care. So, we're going to try to give you the most information that we have. But in talking with the contacts that we have, it's like, hey, what's going on with this? Pretty much everybody doesn't want to talk about it because they don't want to anger the 800-pound gorilla that is Intel. And we just don't think that's a way that business should be conducted. You should not be wielding your clout like an 800-pound gorilla to sort of spin or squelch the story, if there is a story here, for this kind of thing. That was a little bit more than 30 seconds, but that was a pretty good summary.
It's a couple of minutes, but I think it's good that everyone gets to hear all these things. And like I said, we're going to real quick make a 5-minute video and then drop that on the web probably tomorrow, just so you guys have something to share. We'll leave one computer plugged in. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole show for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Nice long episode right before. I mean, it was nice to have a nice long episode right before we left, but I think we got into some good things today. I'm satisfied. Like no tax man ever is.
Reminds me of my radio days. But
man, you got some moire going on your shirt there.
This isn't actually a picture.
Yeah, it is right there.
This isn't actually a picture.
The camera hits here.
This is actually a digital screen.
No one's ever going to find the secrets.
Probably not.
No. So anyway, we'll see you guys on the forum. Thanks very much for all your support, all the Patreon people, all the patrons and everything. You guys are keeping us alive. We are moving to the new studio, and as soon as we get a couple more dollars, we'll hire somebody. It's like the YouTube ad revenue is low enough that we need to generate just a little bit more income. But I'll figure something out because we need to hire somebody else and do a lot more. But things are going to be very cool. Like I said, this is going to be our best year. Having the office is going to help so much. as far as productivity goes in an organization and having space. It's going to be amazing. All right, guys. Thanks very much. We'll see you in the comments on the website. Thanks for watching, and it's time to click the stop stream button.
Goodbye.